Hi, my name is Brad Green, and today I'm going to be breaking down the top 1% of income earners in the United States. There's no doubt that income inequality is growing at exorbitant rates. The U.S. has the most dramatic income inequality of all developed countries. It appears that the rich are only getting richer. Today, the top 1% of income earners have a 22% share of the total income, while the top 0.1% of income earners have an 8% share of total income. So what? Why is this a bad thing? Well, from 1976 to 2006, the top 1% increased their wealth share by 14 percentage points. And in turn, the Gini, or a measure of inequality, increased by 8.4 percentage points. In addition, there's no doubt that the cost of living is increasing. Education and healthcare are growing at really high costs as well, so the call for redistribution of wealth and income is greater than ever. The goal of this talk is to look at the composition of income and then do some summary statistics on race and gender, and basically break down the top 1%, 0.1%, and 0.01% of incomers in the United States. And then at the end, I'll look at current policies and make some future suggestions. As I mentioned earlier, I will start by looking at race demographics of the top 1%. Overall, the top 1% is extremely white, but is becoming slowly more diverse over time. In 1980, white people composed 94% of the top 1%, and in 2014, this number was 85%. The percentage of blacks, Asians, and Mexicans has all increased from 1980 to 2014. Now, if we look at the top 0.1% of income earners, we see the same trends, but overall the trends are a little weaker. For example, in 1998, white people composed of, once again, 94% of the top 1%, and in 2014, this number was slightly down to 90%. In addition, Asians seem to have seen the largest increase in percentage points of the top 0.1%. Next, if we move on to the top 0.01%, we see that this group is incredibly white and there appears to be almost no diversity. In 1980, white people composed of 93.7%, and in 2014, this number actually increased to over 99%. Lastly, it is interesting to look at gender inequality of the top 1%, 0.1%, and 0.01% of income earners in the United States. It's good to see that the amount of women has increased in each of these groups. However, it's a little sad that women only make up 20%, 15%, and 10% of each of these groups respectively. I'm going to start by looking at the top 1%. So, first of all, in 1980, it took roughly about $200,000 to get in the top 1%. This number is adjusted for inflation. Versus in 2014, it took over $400,000 to get into the top 1%. So it appears that it takes more money to get into the top 1% than it has in previous years. In addition, if you look at the brown line, which represents wage income, in 1980, wage income accounted for about 66% of total income, while in 2014, wage income actually accounted for 75% of total income. So next, I'm going to look at the top 0.1% of income earners in the United States. The first thing you notice is the brown line is much lower. So wages are less important to the top 0.1%. In 1980, wage income accounted for, once again, roughly about 2/3 of total income, versus in 2014, wage income only accounts for 56% of the total income. In addition, investment income and other income are more important today than they were in 1980. They each account for roughly 22% of the total income. Lastly, once again, it takes more money to get into the top 0.1% in 2014 than it did in 1980. For example, in 1980, it took roughly $215,000 to get into the top 0.1%, and today it takes roughly $900,000 to get into the top 0.1%. Next, if we look at the top 0.01% of income earners in the United States, we see the same trends as the top 0.1%. However, the trends are even more exaggerated. Once again, if you look at the brown line, it appears that wage income is even less significant today than in previous years. For example, in 1980, wage income accounted for, once again, roughly about 66% of total income, while today, wage income only accounts for 47% of total income. In addition, investment income, or income that you get from interest and dividends, that sort of thing, investment income accounts for 22% of total income, while other income, such as capital gains, accounts for 30% of total income. And lastly, it takes a significant amount of money to get to the top 0.01% of income earners in the United States. So 1980, this number was about $215,000, $220,000 adjusted for inflation, and today it takes over $1.2 million to get into the top 0.01%. We can also break down the occupations of the top 1%, 0.1%, and 0.01% of income earners. Some economists believe that the cause of income inequality is the rise in CEO pay or the rise of money in big banks. So often people look at the finance, insurance, and real estate sectors, or FIRE industries, to measure this. So you can see an increase in each of the three categories in the FIRE industries. However, the largest increase was actually seen in the 0.1%, not the 0.01%. In addition, doctors, lawyers, and professors make up over 22% of the top 1% today. This number is much greater than it was in 1980. This further supports the last slide, showing that 75% of total income is earned from wage income in the top 1%. So after completing some data analysis, it is important to look at the current income tax rates to see if any policy recommendations can be made. Income tax can be broken down into two broad categories. The first is ordinary income, which is, for my case, composed of wage income and investment income. And then the other type of income is capital gains. And both of these two different types of income are taxed differently. So above I have provided the current breakdown for the top 1%, 0.01%, and 0.1%. Based on the data analysis, since 75% of total income comes from wage income, I attempted to create a policy that would actually lower income taxes on wages for the top 1%. However, since other income, such as capital income, played an important role for the top 0.1 and 0.01%, I composed a plan that would increase the capital gains tax for these people. The results are presented in this table. The black column represents current tax rates, while the red columns represent tax rates under my policy. As you can see here, total taxes decreased from 27 to 25% for the top 1%. They stayed the same for the 0.1% and increased from 36 to 42% for the top 0.01%. These changes may seem small, but they are capable of generating a large amount of money. Thank you for having me here to talk today. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about the 1% 0.1% and 0.01% of income earners in the United States. Thank you very much.